I never thought I'd find myself sitting at a dinner table surrounded by a family I barely knew, pretending to be someone's boyfriend just to keep the peace. Yet, there I was, nervously smoothing down the front of my shirt, glancing sideways at Nathan, who was playing the role of the perfect boyfriend like he'd done it 100 times before. Honestly, the whole situation felt like something out of a cheesy rom-com, except this was real life and way more awkward. It all started a couple weeks ago when Nathan called me out of the blue. We hadn't talked much since college. We were friendly enough back then, but life had pulled us in different directions. He worked in finance now, living in the city, while I was still figuring things out in a small town a few hours away. When he asked if I could do him a favor, pretend to be his boyfriend for a family dinner, I thought I'd misheard him. But no, he was completely serious. "You're the only person I trust," he said, voice low and a bit desperate. "Please, just for one night. My family's complicated, and I don't want to explain." Honestly, I'd been curious about him for years. Nathan had this easy charm that drew people in, but he was also the kind of guy who kept most of his cards close to his chest. So when he asked me, a part of me was flattered, and sure, why not? I figured it could be an interesting story to tell later. Now, sitting here in his parents' cozy but slightly intimidating dining room, watching his mom fuss over the table settings and his dad make small talk about politics, I realized I might have underestimated how intense this would be. Nathan leaned over and whispered, "Just smile, nod, and don't say anything weird." Yeah, easier said than done. The family was a mix of warm and critical, with eyes that seemed to look a bit too closely, trying to figure out exactly who I was in Nathan's life. His little sister poked at me with a curious grin, and I caught Nathan's subtle warning glance. It was clear I wasn't just an accessory for this dinner. I was a character in a delicate play, and one wrong move could bring the whole thing crashing down. But what made it even more complicated was how easy it was to get comfortable around Nathan again. We slipped back into that old rhythm, the quick jokes, the shared glances, the way his hand brushed mine just a little too long when he passed the salt. Suddenly, the lie didn't feel so simple anymore. It felt real. And that's when the night started to get interesting. Because pretending to be his boyfriend wasn't just about fooling his family anymore. It was about figuring out if maybe, just maybe, this fake relationship was something I wanted for real. The evening was rolling along, the kind of slow burn where everyone's just talking but not really listening, and I was trying not to overthink every word. Nathan's mom kept casting these little smiles in our direction, like she was silently cheering me on, while his dad seemed to be sizing me up, probably trying to figure out if I was boyfriend material or just some random dude Nathan dragged in off the street. At one point, Nathan's dad asked me what I did for a living. I froze for a second because, honestly, I hadn't prepared an answer. I'd half-jokingly told Nathan I was a freelance whatever, which sounded vague enough to avoid follow-up questions but also weird enough to raise eyebrows. "I'm a graphic designer," I said quickly, hoping the simplicity would do the trick. Nathan gave me a small nod, like I'd passed some invisible test. "Ah, creative type," his dad said, still with that scrutinizing look. "Must be a tough gig these days." "Yeah, it has its ups and downs," I shrugged. "But I enjoy it." Nathan's sister, Emily, piped up then, leaning forward with a sly smile. "So, how did you two meet? I want the full story." I glanced at Nathan, who gave me a barely perceptible shake of his head, warning me not to overshare. "We met through some mutual friends," Nathan said smoothly, jumping in before I could say anything too embarrassing. It was pretty casual at first. Emily raised an eyebrow at me like she wasn't buying it. "Casual, huh? Sounds like there's more to that." Nathan chuckled, then turned to me with a grin. "Feel free to fill in the blanks." I smiled, deciding to play along. "Well, we've known each other for years, actually. College friends who lost touch and then reconnected recently." The way Nathan's eyes softened when he looked at me caught me off guard. It was like in that moment, the fake story we were spinning started to feel a little more real, even if neither of us said it out loud. Dinner came and went in a blur of conversation, laughter, and the occasional uncomfortable pause when someone brought up family expectations or future plans. Nathan's family was the type that asked a lot of questions about work, relationships, plans for settling down, and the pressure was building, At one point, his mom reached across the table and took my hand. I swear, my heart skipped a beat. "Thank you for being here tonight," she said quietly, her eyes warm but serious. "Nathan means a lot to us, and we want him to be happy." I squeezed her hand gently, feeling a pang of guilt. Happy might not be the word I'd use to describe the whole charade, but I was starting to understand how much this night mattered to Nathan. After dessert, Nathan and I were supposed to help clear the table. We moved into the kitchen, and that's when the mask slipped a little. "Why did you ask me to do this, really?" I asked, drying a plate with shaky hands. Nathan leaned against the counter, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to find the words. "My family, they don't exactly know about me. Not the real me. I'm not out to them. They're old school, and I've had my share of awkward conversations before." I nodded slowly. "So you thought if they saw you with someone real, it'd be easier for them?" "Exactly," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not just about making them believe. It's about me figuring out if I'm ready to be real with them, and maybe with someone." That hit me harder than I expected. Here was Nathan, the guy I'd always admired from a distance, suddenly laying himself bare in a way I hadn't seen before. "I'm glad you asked me," I said honestly. "Even if it's just pretend." He looked up, his eyes catching mine with something raw and hopeful. "Me too." When we went back to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. There was a quiet understanding between us now, a shared secret that made the rest of the night feel less like acting and more like connection. Later, as the family started to wind down and people moved to the living room for coffee and after-dinner drinks, Nathan pulled me aside near the staircase. "Want to get out of here for a bit?" he asked. I hesitated. Pretending to be his boyfriend was one thing, but this felt like stepping into something real. "Yeah," I said, surprised at how easy it was to say. We slipped out the back door into the cool night air, the sounds of the family fading behind us. The street was quiet, the kind of calm that makes you feel like the world shrunk down just to two people. Nathan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Thanks for doing this, for being here." I smiled, feeling something stir inside me that wasn't just sympathy or friendship. "Maybe next time you can ask me to be your boyfriend for real," I teased. He laughed, that easy, genuine laugh I'd missed. "Maybe," he said, stepping a little closer. And suddenly, the lie didn't feel like a lie at all. We stood there in the cool night, the streetlight casting long shadows around us, and for a moment, it felt like the world had shrunk down to just us two. I could feel his heartbeat in the silence, steady but a bit faster than usual, and honestly, mine was no different. It was like the pretense had cracked open a little, and something genuine was slipping through. "So," I said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably, "what now? Do we just keep pretending every time you want to avoid your family?" Nathan laughed, the kind of laugh that's part relief and part disbelief. I wish it were that simple. But honestly, I don't know. I've been hiding so much, even from myself, I'm not sure where to start. I nodded, understanding more than I expected. "Yeah, it's hard. Pretending something is real can sometimes make you realize you want it to be, though." He looked at me then, really looked, like he was searching for the truth in my words. "What about you? Did you ever think us, could be more than a favor?" I shrugged, feeling heat creep up my neck. "I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I've thought about it, more than I probably should have." He smiled, a mixture of surprise and something softer. "Good, because I'm thinking the same thing." We stood there, the silence between us no longer awkward but charged, like the calm before a storm you didn't want to miss. Then Nathan reached out, his fingers gently brushing against mine. It was subtle, but it sent a ripple straight through me. "Walk with me?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, stepping closer. We started down the street, side by side, the sounds of the neighborhood wrapping around us as the night deepened. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, not as some fake boyfriend, but as someone who mattered to Nathan. We found a little park bench under a tree and sat down. Nathan pulled his jacket tighter around him, and I did the same, the cool air making the closeness more welcome. "So," I said, breaking the silence. "What's the plan after tonight?" "Is your family gonna find out?" he sighed, staring up at the stars like they might have the answers. "I don't know. I want them to, but I'm scared. They're traditional, and I don't want to lose them. But hiding like this? It's exhausting." I reached over, giving his hand a squeeze. "You don't have to do it alone." Nathan gave me a grateful look, the kind that made my chest ache. "Thanks. I mean it, you being here tonight. It meant more than I can say." I smiled, feeling a mix of nervous excitement and something deeper. "Maybe we can figure it out together." He looked at me, eyes bright with something like hope. I leaned in just a little, and he didn't pull away. Instead, his hand found mine again, tightening gently. Back at the house, the sound of laughter and chatter was a reminder of the world waiting for us. But in that moment, sitting under the stars with Nathan, all of it seemed a little less daunting. When we finally got up to head back, I realized I was already dreading the moment we'd have to slip back into our roles, pretending to be something we weren't. But maybe, just maybe, that pretense was a bridge to something real. As we stepped back inside, Nathan's mom caught my eye and gave me a warm smile, like she already figured out the truth without saying a word. Maybe she did. Maybe she'd seen us in that moment outside. The way we looked at each other. The quiet connection that couldn't be faked. The rest of the evening passed with a new kind of ease. Nathan's family kept up their questions and comments, but now I felt less like an actor and more like a part of the story. Later, when the crowd thinned and goodbyes were said, Nathan and I found ourselves alone in the living room. He looked at me with that same intensity from earlier. "You're staying the night, right?" he asked. I nodded, suddenly eager to spend more time with him, even if it was just for the night. "Yeah, I think I am." As he led me to the guest room, I realized something important. What started as a favor, a fabricated story to save face, was turning into something neither of us expected. Something real. And honestly, that scared the hell out of me, in the best way possible. The guest room was small but cozy, with a soft bed, a lamp casting a warm glow, and a window that looked out onto the quiet street. Nathan closed the door behind us, and for a moment, the weight of the day settled between us. We'd spent hours pretending, smiling, dodging questions, all while trying not to let the truth slip. "Thanks for staying," Nathan said quietly, running a hand through his hair like he wasn't sure how to keep this going. I shrugged, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "Honestly, it's been kinda nice. Feels like I'm seeing a side of you I missed all these years." He smiled, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes and makes your heart skip. "I guess I've always been pretty guarded. Family stuff, personal stuff. It's easier to just keep it all locked up." "I get that," I said. "But pretending tonight, it made me think maybe it's time to open up a little more. Maybe to you, maybe to others." Nathan's gaze lingered on me a moment longer than necessary. "You don't have to pretend with me." I felt my cheeks flush. "Yeah? That sounds pretty nice." There was a pause, filled only by the faint hum of the street outside and the distant sound of the city's nightlife. Then Nathan took a small step closer. "Can I be honest with you?" he asked. "Of course." He hesitated, then said, "I've wanted to do this for a long time. Not just ask you to pretend to be my boyfriend, but be with you, for real." My heart pounded, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. "I felt the same way," I admitted. "Guess I was just waiting for a sign." He smiled, the kind that's equal parts relief and hope. "Consider this your sign." Nathan reached out, his hand brushing against mine again, this time lingering. The tension between us was electric, a mix of nerves and something deeper. Without thinking, I leaned in, and our lips met softly, hesitantly at first, then with more certainty. It was like everything we'd kept hidden was finally coming to the surface. When we pulled apart, he laughed softly, a little breathless. "So, what now?" I grinned. "Well, we still have to face your family tomorrow, but maybe after this, pretending won't be so hard." Nathan nodded, eyes shining. "Yeah, maybe it won't be." We spent the rest of the night talking, really talking, about everything we'd left unsaid over the years. It felt like peeling back layers, discovering who we each were beneath the surface. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't expected, and Nathan did too. By the time morning came, the fake boyfriend act didn't feel like an act anymore. It felt like the start of something real. Over breakfast, Nathan's family was a little more relaxed, and their questions had a softer edge. His mom caught my eye and gave me a knowing smile, like she approved of whatever was happening between Nathan and me. As I left their house later that day, Nathan walked me to the door, his hand in mine just like the night before. "Thanks for everything," he said, voice low and sincere. I smiled back. "No, thank you. For trusting me." He leaned in and kissed me quickly, then whispered, "Let's not pretend anymore." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. Deal. Walking away, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected favors lead to the most real connections. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something neither of us wanted to pretend anymore. The days after that dinner felt like the world had shifted just slightly beneath my feet. Nothing obvious to anyone else, but everything different for me. Nathan and I started texting more. Little messages that felt casual but carried the weight of something new. I kept catching myself smiling at my phone, the same way I used to, with old crushes back in high school, the kind of smile that makes your cheeks hurt by the end of the day. We didn't rush anything, which was a relief. No grand proclamations or awkward first date pressure, just small moments, like when Nathan sent me a picture of his morning coffee with a teasing message, or when I showed up unannounced at his apartment one evening and we cooked dinner together, laughing over the fact that neither of us knew how to make anything complicated. But even with all that ease, there was an unspoken question hanging in the air: when or if Nathan was going to tell his family the truth. After all, the whole charade had started because of their expectations and his fear of rejection. One night, we were sitting on his couch, fingers tangled, watching some terrible movie that neither of us was really paying attention to. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from his mom. I saw him pause, his smile fading just a little. "What's up?" I asked gently. He hesitated, then showed me the message. It was just a simple, "Dinner Sunday. We want to see you both." But the "both" felt heavy, like a reminder of the lie still hanging over us. "I think they want me to bring you again," Nathan said quietly. I nodded, trying not to let the nerves crawl up my spine. "Are you ready for that?" He laughed without humor. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but maybe it's time." That Sunday, when I showed up at Nathan's parents' house again, it felt different, more real, more charged. This time, Nathan introduced me not as a favor, but as his boyfriend. His mom's face lit up with a kind of pride I hadn't seen before, but his dad was more guarded, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. Throughout dinner, I caught Nathan stealing glances my way, as if asking silently for reassurance. I squeezed his hand under the table, and he gave me a grateful smile. After the meal, his parents pulled us aside. "We're happy to see Nathan happy," his mom said, her voice warm, "but it's going to take time to adjust. Just be patient with us." His dad nodded, finally breaking his stoic silence. Just be good to each other. That was all the acceptance Nathan needed to exhale years of tension. And honestly, it felt like a victory not just for him, but for both of us. Walking back to his apartment that night, Nathan looked at me, eyes shining. "Thank you for being patient. For being you." I smiled, feeling a swell in my chest. There's no one else I'd rather be. The funny thing was, what started as a pretend relationship to keep the peace turned into the realest thing I'd felt in a long time. Nathan and I were still figuring things out. Sure, there were awkward conversations, moments of doubt, and plenty of laughs along the way. But we were doing it together. Sometimes, life throws these curveballs, asking you to play a part you never expected. And sometimes, those moments lead you exactly where you need to be, with someone who sees you, truly sees you, and wants to stick around. I never imagined that a family dinner would change my life. But here I am, grateful for that odd, beautiful night where pretending became real. And honestly, I'm excited to see where this goes next. After that dinner where Nathan's parents gave their cautious blessing, things started to feel like they were moving forward. Slowly, but steadily. It was like the first crack in a dam, and all these emotions and conversations that had been bottled up were starting to flow. But with that flow came moments of doubt and uncertainty, which made me realize this wasn't going to be some instant fairy tale. One weekend, Nathan invited me to join him for brunch with some of his closest friends. He was nervous, which was funny because this group had been part of his life for years. "They're chill," he reassured me, but his fingers kept tapping the table impatiently. "I just haven't introduced anyone before." When we got there, the group welcomed me with open arms, which took a huge weight off my shoulders. They were warm and easygoing, the kind of people who made you feel like you belonged immediately. Nathan and I slipped into that comfortable space where we could laugh and be ourselves, the pretense completely gone. But despite the laughter and ease, I noticed Nathan's eyes kept flicking to his phone. When I finally asked, he admitted, "I'm still not sure about when or how to tell my brother. He's complicated." That hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't even met this brother, but I already felt protective of Nathan. "Do you want me to come with you when you do?" He looked surprised, then smiled softly. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." The next few weeks were a mix of highs and lows. There were moments when Nathan and I felt like we were finally making progress, building something real and solid. And then there were days when the unspoken fears crept back in. Fear of rejection, fear of losing family, fear of what the future might hold. One night, we sat on his balcony, the city lights stretching out below us. Nathan was quiet for a long time, staring at the skyline. "You ever think about what comes next?" I asked. He sighed. "All the time. I want to be out, open, but I'm scared of burning bridges, of losing people I care about." I nodded, understanding that tightrope walk all too well. "But you don't have to lose yourself trying to make everyone else comfortable." He turned to me, eyes searching. "Thanks for being here, for being patient." I smiled. "I'm not going anywhere." Then the moment came sooner than I expected. A Saturday afternoon, Nathan's brother showed up at his apartment unexpectedly. The tension was immediate. Nathan's hand found mine under the kitchen table, fingers tightening. "Hey," his brother said, eyes flicking between us. "So, this is the guy?" Nathan nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, this is him." The conversation was tense at first, a careful dance of questions and guarded answers. But as the afternoon wore on, things softened just a bit. His brother was blunt but not cruel, and I could see the gears turning behind his eyes. Later, after his brother left, Nathan turned to me, voice low. "That was harder than I thought." I nodded, but it happened. And that's progress. He smiled, the kind of tired but genuine smile that means hope. "I'm glad you're here." I leaned in, kissing him gently. "Always." As we pulled apart, I realized just how much this journey had changed me. What started as a favor, a pretend boyfriend for one uncomfortable dinner, had grown into something I never expected, something real, something worth fighting for. And as Nathan and I faced the unknown together, I knew one thing for sure. There was no going back to pretending anymore. In the days that followed Nathan's brother's visit, there was this strange but welcome shift in the air between us. It wasn't that everything suddenly became perfect or easy, but rather that we'd crossed a threshold, a line from which there was no turning back to pretending or hiding. I could tell Nathan was still processing the encounter. Sometimes he'd get quiet out of nowhere, staring off like he was replaying every word, every glance. One evening, a few nights after the visit, we found ourselves sprawled on his living room carpet, a half-finished puzzle between us, too distracted to make any real progress. I was watching Nathan, the way the streetlight filtered through the window and caught in his hair, when he finally broke the silence. "I'm scared," he said, voice barely above a whisper. I looked up, caught off guard by the honesty. "About what?" "Everything. About being out to my family, about what my brother thinks, about losing people, about what it means for us." I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "I get it. I'm scared too. But you don't have to face it alone anymore. We're in this together." He smiled, a mix of gratitude and something softer, more vulnerable. "You always know what to say." I laughed softly. "I'm full of surprises." For the first time since that whole mess started, Nathan let himself lean into the uncertainty, and it was beautiful to watch. It made me wonder how often people get so caught up in fear that they missed the chance for something real. Things between us settled into this new rhythm, no longer pretending, but navigating the messy, complicated, exhilarating reality of being together. We started carving out our own little routines, from late-night takeout runs to Sunday morning coffee dates. Even mundane stuff felt special because it was ours. One Saturday, Nathan invited me to join him for a family outing, a casual picnic at a nearby park. His parents, his sister Emily, and even his brother came. It was the first time I'd seen all of them together with Nathan and me, not just as a guest but as part of the family unit. Sitting there on a checkered blanket, sunlight filtering through the trees, I felt this overwhelming sense of belonging. Nathan's mom caught my eye and gave me a warm smile, while his dad offered me a nod of approval that felt more genuine than any words could. At one point, Emily nudged Nathan and whispered, "So, when's the wedding?" Both of us laughed, the kind of easy, unforced laughter that comes from being comfortable in your own skin. "I'm not ready for that yet," Nathan said, winking at me. The afternoon was filled with stories, teasing, and moments that made me realize how far we'd come. Nathan and I shared glances that held unspoken promises, the kind that only grow stronger with time. Later, when it was just the two of us walking home, Nathan took my hand, his fingers curling around mine perfectly. "I know there's still a long way to go," he said, voice thoughtful. "But I'm ready to face it. With you." "Me too," I replied, squeezing his hand. "Whatever comes, we face it together." As we reached his apartment, Nathan pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "Thanks for being the one I can count on." I smiled, feeling my heart swell. Always. That night, lying next to him, I realized that what started as a favor, a fake boyfriend for a family dinner, had blossomed into something real and raw, something worth the fear, the risk, and the unknown. And as I drifted off to sleep, with Nathan's arm around me, I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning of our story. Months passed, and with each one, Nathan and I grew more comfortable in this thing we'd built together. No scripts, no pretending, just two people figuring it out. There were still challenges, sure. Some days his family asked awkward questions, or Nathan wrestled with his own doubts. But those moments felt smaller now, like bumps in the road rather than walls we couldn't get past. One chilly evening, we found ourselves back at Nathan's parents' house. This time, it wasn't a big dinner or a family event, just a quiet visit to catch up. Nathan's mom greeted me with a hug, his dad gave me a nod that felt warmer than before, and Emily teased Nathan mercilessly about how lucky he was. We sat by the fire, talking about everything and nothing, the kind of comfortable chatter that only comes when you've been accepted, flaws and all. Nathan reached for my hand across his mom's armchair, fingers intertwining like they'd done 1,000 times in private, but now freely in front of his family. Later, when we stepped outside into the crisp air, Nathan stopped me on the porch. The streetlights cast a soft glow over his face as he looked at me, honest, open, and without any of the old hesitation. "I don't know exactly where this is going," he said, voice low, "but I know I want to keep doing this, with you." I smiled, heartful. "Me too. No pressure, just us." He pulled me close, and we shared a quiet kiss, the kind that didn't need fireworks or grand declarations. It was steady, warm, and real, the perfect reflection of everything we'd been through. Walking back to his apartment hand in hand, I realized how much had changed from that first night when he asked me to pretend. What had started as a favor had turned into a partnership, built on trust and patience. We didn't have every answer, but we had each other, and that felt like enough. As I lay beside him that night, I thought about how sometimes life's unexpected detours lead you exactly where you're meant to be. Nathan's family dinner was never just a meal. It was the beginning of something honest and whole, and honestly, I couldn't imagine it any other way.